Here we have the inside of the Benimar Tessoro T482. If we firstly come to the control panel, we can turn the 12 volt on by pressing this button first, and then secondly pressing this one. After that, as long as we've filled up our fresh water tank, we can then turn the water pump on. The water pump needs to be on so we can get water out of the taps, flush the toilet and fill the boiler if it's been drained. The last button along the top here just turns the awning light on and off. If we now drop to the lower buttons, they mainly give us information. So this first one here will let us know the condition of the leisure battery. After that, we can also check the condition of the vehicle battery. If we want to know how much fresh water is on board, we just press this one. And then this button here just controls the illumination of the control panel. So we can dim it right the way down and brighten it up again. This illumination here is letting us know that we are connected to mains electricity. We will get an illumination just here when the engine is running to let you know the alternator is charging the batteries. When your grey water is approaching the point that it needs emptying, you will get a red light just flash here. An amber light will flash here when your fresh water is low, and if either of the batteries do get dangerously low, again you will get flashing illuminations as a warning. Beside the main Benimar control panel, we then have the Truma panel for your heating and hot water. To turn on, just press here and you will now see a series of icons, and as I rotate the button they will begin to flash. Again, we have a little icon indicating that we have main supply connected. If we start with the first icon here, this one is for your heating. So if I now click on it, heating is off, and all I now do is rotate the button and pick whatever temperature I would like it to be inside the motorhome, right the way up to a very toasty 30 degrees. So at the moment I'm going to pick 30 degrees, so I'm now going to click to store it in, and you'll now see a little flame has just appeared above. That little flame there just represents the heating system, and it's just letting you know that you have set a parameter. Whenever the heating is actually in operation, the flame will begin to flash, and it will continue to flash until the temperature has been achieved that you've asked. The thermostat is just here. After heating, we then have hot water, and again if I now click, hot water is off. If we now rotate, we can heat hot water in eco mode, which will give us a temperature of about 40 degrees. We can heat in hot, which will give us a temperature of about 60 degrees. And we can also perform a boost on the boiler. The boost was mainly designed for if there's going to be more than one of you having showers in quick succession of each other, or if you would just like a longer shower. If you do perform the boost, it will turn the heating off, as it needs to take that extra power to perform. So if I now drop back down into eco, you'll see the heating comes back on, and again we now have the flashing light letting you know that it's building up to temperature. If we now rotate across to the next icon, this one here is power source. So to heat hot water and do the heating, we're currently using mains electricity at 2 kilowatts. If I rotate the button, I can lower the power consumption to 1 kilowatt. So if we're on a lower amp site, to stop ourselves from tripping. If we continue to rotate, we can put it into dual fuel mode. So we're using a mixture of gas and mains at 2 kilowatts, or a mixture of gas and mains at 1. These settings are extremely handy, especially in the winter months if you want to get up to temperature nice and quickly. It will only use the gas as it's required. And then lastly, if we're completely off grid, we can just use gas. The final top icon is for the circulation fan, so we can either have the fan in eco mode, high or boost. If I now turn off hot water and heating and return back to the circulation fan, what we can also do if it's like a warm day, we can just use the fan to vent the motorhome, and it has a fan speed of 1 to 10. If we now drop to the lower icons, this bottom one here is for a basic timer, so if I now click on it, we can set a start time and then an end time. Once we've done that, we can then just pick what we would like activated within that time period. Lastly, timer on or off. If I now activate the timer, it will come up there, and then within that time period those settings would then apply. If I now turn it back off again, the next time we come to it we can alter it again. The next icon is just to set the clock. And then lastly, we have a spanner for your settings menu. In that we have offset, which is just for the thermostat. If you don't think it's quite correct, you can just slightly adjust it. Temperature, just if you prefer it displayed in Celsius or Fahrenheit. Brightness of the screen. 12 or 24 hour clock. Language. Index, mainly for technicians, it just lets them know what software it's running. And then lastly, full factory reset. These control panels will throw up error codes from time to time. They will usually be relatively basic stuff. So if you're running it on main supply and you trip or you don't have mains connected, it will throw up an error code to let you know. Or if you're running it on gas and your gas runs out, or you turn it off, or if you come to this window here and you open it whilst trying to use gas, it will cut it out because we have a pressure switch here. This is because the flue sits underneath this window, so this pressure switch just stops you from basically giving yourself carbon monoxide poisoning. So an error code will basically appear where my finger is, just here as a warning triangle. If you then click on it, it will then display the error code. It's a series of numbers and letters. If you look in the manual or Google it, it will then tell you what the problem is. 9 times out of 10, if you rectify the problem, the error code will just disappear. If that is not the case, double click on the warning triangle, and again it will then usually say no error and disappear. If you still have no luck, if you've still got icons running along the top here, just make sure you've turned them off as well, because it can reassess a lot faster when it's not trying to do lots of things at once. If still no joy, I always then suggest the good old-fashioned turn it off and turn it back on again. And the way we turn this control panel completely off is just by holding this button in until it says off, go past where it says app, and then off. If you stop on the app part, it just puts the control panel in a semi-dormant state to control it from the Truma iNet. If we now turn it back on again, if you've still got an error code, I then always suggest just going into the settings menu and then doing a factory reset. Sometimes they can just glitch and they just need to be reset. With these newer Truma control panels now, the gas protocols have changed. So if it's a gas problem and you've tried to reset it a few times and it's still not working, it will then lock you out for 15 minutes, just for safety reasons. After the 15 minutes has basically passed, the panel will unlock itself and you can then try again. If you are going to connect up to the Truma app, once you've downloaded the app, you will then need to use this box just up here. Once you've downloaded the app, make sure your Bluetooth is turned on your device and launch. Once you've launched, you will see a button on your screen that says remote control. Press that button and then follow the on-screen instructions. It will firstly tell you to come to the Bluetooth button just here and press it. It will then send the Bluetooth signal out and you will then be able to start connecting up. Once you've connected, you will then be able to control your heating and your hot water system locally via Bluetooth. If you want to control it from further afield, you can purchase a pay-as-you-go SIM card, and it basically inserts where my finger is here. You can then register that through the app, and then you can control your heating and hot water from much further afield. The SIM card does not need to be an expensive one. It only needs to have texts. No data is required. If we now come to the bench seat just here and we just remove the cushions, we will find underneath here the consumer unit. So we have the trip switches just here. So we have the individual MCBs, main RCD and test button just there. So if something's not working on main supply, just check to see whether or not you've tripped in the van. We then have the 12-volt fuses just here. Very rarely blow, but if one is going to blow, I would imagine it's going to be one of the yellow 20 amp fuses, which basically are linked to the electric drop down beds. If you have too much stuff on those beds and you put them up, if the motor goes under too much stress, it will pop a fuse to protect itself. We then have battery charger just here and here. The solar panel is also linked into this red one, so if you look at the lights on here, you'll be able to see exactly what the solar panel is up to. Both the battery charger and the solar panel charge the vehicle battery and the leisure battery. Both the batteries can be found underneath the passenger seat and the driver's seat. Leisure underneath passenger and vehicle underneath drivers. This motorhome is fully winterized, so if we just pop down here, you will see a little switch. That switch there controls the heater inside the waste tank, so if you are using the van in extremely cold climate and there is a danger of freezing, you can just flick this switch on and this will then prevent any frost damage to your waste tank. You do not have a heater in your fresh tank, as it is an onboard tank. So if I just remove this cushion, we can see the fresh water tank just here, and we can gain access to it if we need to by removing this black cap. So if you want to add cleaning powders, etc. to it. Sitting on top is the water pump just here. As we move along, we have the extractor fan just here, light on and off, fan on and off. We then have the electric hot plate that runs off the main supply, on and off just here. Red light comes on to let you know it's in operation. We then have the two gas rings. Push in, twist and press the igniter. Beneath that we then have the oven and grill. Push in to the left for the oven. and then push in to the right for the grill. In the cutlery drawer you will find the gas isolation taps for the motorhome. They're all in the on position. So we have the fridge, heating and hot water, barbecue point and the oven. They can all stay like this. They are more for maintenance. I personally say if you smell gas in the van, go to the source and turn the gas bottle off. Above my head here we have the Omnivent fan. If we are going to use this, we need to wind the roof vent up just here, and then we can turn the fan on. And you'll see we have arrows out for extraction and arrows in for cooling. Variable fan speed just by pressing. And then make sure the roof vent is closed for travel. Next to the iNet box we have the digital amplifier for the television aerial, on and off on the side just here, and we can control the boost just here. Once we know that is on, we can then use the television. The television slides out just by pulling on this lever here, and then we can slide it out. The Avtex televisions behave like virtually any television, on and off just on the button just here. This does have a DVD player and USB connectivity up the top here. We then have all the normal bits and bobs. So we have television guide just here, and because this is a travel television and you will need to retune it as you move about, it has a nice fast retune. So you just press this button here and it will then take you straight back to the retune menu, then just hit OK and it will retune itself back in again. Microwave again will work on main supply. Do make sure that the contents is removed for travel. We then have power setting just here, and then timer set. The Thetford fridge freezer turns on and off on this button just here, so if I now hold it in I can turn it off. And then press again, turn it back on again. This is an automatic fridge freezer, so if I now press this button and put it onto A for auto, it will find the best power source it can for you. So now if I went outside and pulled the mains lead out, it would then automatically attempt to fire itself up onto gas, and as soon as we start the engine it will then automatically go over to 12 volt maintain. We can take it out of auto, so I can manually put it onto mains. I can manually put it onto 12 volt maintain. We are going to get an error code at the moment because we do not have the engine running. And I can manually put it onto gas. But auto is definitely the easiest one to have it on. Temperature control just here. And then the last button is the unit's anti-condensation jacket. So currently the jacket is on. This definitely needs to be on when you are in warmer climate. It basically stops the unit from building up condensation around it, which would then run down the back and form a puddle underneath it. In the colder winter months you can turn it off just like so. We then have a nice large freezer box at the top and fridge below. You will find on both freezer and fridge little venting arms, so when you're not using it you can just hook them in to hold the doors on a jar. Because again this is a large fridge, you will find that you have a secondary travel catch down the bottom. If we now move into the washroom, we have the Thetford toilet just here. The bowl does swivel. Open to the cassette just on the grey lever here. And then push to flush. Close, back up again. If this has not been closed and you try to remove the cassette from the outside, it will not come out. So if you are feeling resistance, make sure somebody hasn't left it open. Level indicator just here, so it will rotate round to red when it needs emptying. We then have the basin, light switch just tucked underneath the vanity cabinet, and we then have the shower. Do make sure that the shower screen is fully clipped back for travel. Both of the electric beds just operate on the switches and come down like so. We can have the beds in higher positions where we then clip on ladders, or we can have them just hovering above the cushions. If you are going to have it in the lowest position, do make sure that the lights have been turned off underneath, or you may scorch the upholstery. If we are going to have it in the lower position, we do need to make sure that we've moved all of the backrest cushions out of the way. If the beds were to completely malfunction, they can be manually wound up and down. And on the back bed, it's located just here. And it is just a 13mm nut. Just pop in the winding tool and you can then wind it up or down. Obviously the front bed is exactly the same in design. The switch on this one is on the side instead underneath it. Do make sure that the sink glass is also down before dropping. The winder point on this one is just tucked underneath here. And this is the winding tool. If we now come to the back lounge area and again remove some of the cushions out of the way, we can then find the location of the boiler itself. The boiler drain valve is just here. These drain valves are automatic, so if it's in the closed position and the temperature inside the van drops below 3 or 4 degrees, this drain valve will open to drop all the water out of the boiler to frost protect itself. If you are going to manually drain it, you need to firstly make sure the water pump is turned off and then come to this blue diamond. When we twist this blue diamond, a little blue button is going to pop out at the base of the unit, just like so. To then reclose it back up again, twist, and then push the blue button back in again to reset. And then make sure you have water in the fresh water tank, turn the water pump on, and it will then begin to prime the boiler back up again. You will need to open your taps up to push all the air out. If this automatically drains, all that will happen is the blue button will pop out, and all you need to do is just push it back into reset. If it's not staying in, it's just too cold in the motorhome, and you will need to turn the heating on to generate some heat. Another reason why the blue button will not stay in is if you've manually drained it and not twisted it back to the correct position. Under all of the other cushions we have storage compartments, and the centre we can gain access into the storage part at the back.